what we do is we've developed computer-based algorithms that can read buildings' use of electricity on an hourly basis and figure out what's good and what's bad in terms of what's going on in the building. But really the hardest part is something you alluded to, but I want to spend my 10 or 15 minutes on, and that is talking about people. Because people are not smart. They're like me. They're lazy, and like you said, they're not really overly concerned about energy. So as we identify all these opportunities for utility companies to save money, to save energy, the hardest part is getting people to act on those suggestions. And that's where I think for younger people who've grown up in the age of the internet and the social network, and you really have a better idea about what gets people to act relative to somebody old like me who just kind of badgers his students into acting, you know, that's where the opportunities are. And so let me give you a couple of examples. So one of the big problems is the split incentive problem. So you look at a building, if you take your average commercial building, you've got a person who owns the building, and in Boston, Boston Properties owns a lot of those buildings. And in the case of First Fuel, we rent space in that building. What incentive is there? And oftentimes, the lease includes electricity. What incentive is there for us to save any electricity? It's in the lease. It's paid for. Or the landlord simply pays or shifts the cost onto the tenant. Then, yes, now we're paying the price of electricity, but would I invest in energy efficiency? You're shaking your head no, why not?
See, people are not concerned. See, sellers are concerned, but people are generally do not want to invest.
Why not?
Because it would be more expensive than the electricity.
Well,
they do a feasible return of investment.
They're renting the place, they don't care.
Yeah, exactly. I'm renting the place. I don't care. I'm not going to put in nice windows if I'm going to leave in a month or a year or 2 years. So once you have what we call, once a building is not owned by its occupant, you have this tremendous difficulty in getting people to act. And so there's a whole field of behavioral economics. How many people have taken a class in behavioral economics? That's a tremendous opportunity for students to really understand how people behave with regard to energy and get them to act. And it's often not through prices, unfortunately, as First Fuel is finding out. As Enernoc is finding out, I don't want to give away any trade secrets, but demand response, I would argue, has not been as successful as we had hoped. Why? Because one of the best demand responses is when electricity prices go up, you can either turn off your lights in your machines, or what we're finding is a lot of times people turn on their backup generators and sell power into the system at a very high price, or simply reduce their consumption by turning on their backup generators. So all these wonderful things that you build into the system can get defeated by very clever people. Then the other thing you said is there are all these opportunities out there with positive net present value. And I agree with you 100%. So what positive net present value means that I can invest in this energy efficiency device, and over time, it'll pay itself back. But yet what we find again and again and again is people are lazy and they don't want to do that. So if you're running a law office, or if you're running some business that's not really concerned with energy, you don't want to think about investing in an energy conserving device. You just want to run your law office. And so even though there's lots of opportunities to save money, people are not focused on energy because for most businesses, it's a really small part of their bill, of what they're trying to do. And if you can kind of, how we say, ship that part of the business out, if you can bring somebody in who'll do that for you, that's great. So one of the big opportunities is third-party financing. So what if you could come into my home, buy me a new air conditioning system, and I don't, again, need to think of it, and just we could work out some kind of deal on what I would pay you for having put in that new energy-efficient air conditioning system. That's a huge opportunity, but it's really difficult to do. So at First Fuel, one of the things we're trying to do is just, can we measure the savings that you get from installing that new energy-efficient air conditioner? What would be one of the problems? What happens once I give you a really energy-efficient air conditioner?
Use more of it.
Exactly. Use more of it. And so now all of a sudden, how does that work? How do I capture those savings of you using more of my more efficient system? So these are, again, kind of very person-oriented things that are very difficult to solve. Another issue is privacy. I can tell you, having looked inside lots of buildings on their hourly things, I know exactly what's going on inside your building. And there are a lot of people who are legitimately concerned, whether you're a business or just a private residence. And when I was asked what app I would choose kind of no app, because I don't really want people looking at exactly what's going on in my house. And if I'm an industry, it's not clear to me I want to let people know exactly how I'm making beer cans, because maybe I'm making them really efficiently relative to everybody else. So when I being First Fuel, when we work with an electric utility, we have to sign all kinds of confidentiality things to look at people's data, and all our data have to be on servers that can't be hacked into. There's high security, because this is really valuable information. And again, are you going to give it away for free? So of course Google wants that information, because what is Google going to do with that?
They're going to monetize it.
How are they going to monetize it?
For advertising. They sell access to their advertising.
Yeah, they're going to know exactly, they can figure out pretty much what appliances you're using, when you're watching them. They're going to be able to monetize that information really effectively. And right now, electric utilities are trying to figure out, whose information is that? Is it First Fuel's? We'd love to have that information, be able to monetize it. Or is it their information? And then there's another issue that we talked about with solar, and you alluded to, that I think is really going to be important. And one of the things that worries me is the grid is going to be the new energy ghetto. And that is, people like me, fairly affluent, BU doesn't pay a lot, but well-dressed here at least. I can put solar on my house and largely run my meter backwards. And I'm not paying any transmission charge, I'm not paying a distribution charge, but I am using your grid as backup, such that on a cloudy day, I'll buy some electricity from you. But on most days, I'll run the meter, so at the end of the month, I don't have a bill. So what does that mean? It's that death spiral you were talking about. But now what happens is I'm free riding on your grid, and only people who can afford to buy PV can get off that grid. Only people who can't afford it or live in large houses, large apartment buildings that have lots of people per roof space, they're stuck on the grid. And so there's going to be a real equity issue here as well. How do we deal with that? Is that all I want to say? It's hard to imagine that's all I want to say. But let's stop there and let's allow some questions.